All right.
It's true.
Tweet it.
We're here. Tweet it out. Blast up the Twitters. Hello internet. What's going on? We got all the cool kids, all the cool friends of the show. Steelskin 666, no 667. I'm sorry, one passed. VC Jester gave us a $10 super chat. Said, "I miss not being able to pester you all as much, but this new job means I may be able to achieve my life goal of putting up a 100-foot wide screen next to IDG that plays Ridley Scott movies 24/7." That's pretty good. I like that. We miss you too. Luckily we get to chat in Discord, so that's always nice.
I will ask, like, the Blade Runner, sort of like people who, if I got picked up by the cops, like at some point I would be like, dude, can you stop spinning this thing? Can you just like land this thing? I mean, why you got to spin this? Are you trying to make me sick? Is this part of the interrogation or something? Why does the spinner, I know it's called the spinner, why does it land like this? That's like, what the hell? Is it like is it like a tilt-a-whirl for the LAPD? I don't understand that.
I don't know.
Somebody with the Blade Runner, like, who just studied why does the spinner spin like that
to land? Why
does the
spinner spin?
Well, I know it's called the spinner, but I mean, I just don't understand it. That's like, well, you can't like, what? Helicopters don't spin like that when they're landing unless the rear rotor is out and they're crashing. But, you know, what? I don't understand it.
Yeah, definitely don't want that. Oh, you know what? We got Matthew Lang, friend of the show, Matthew Lang, birthday boy, Matthew Lang. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday,
Matthew.
yes.
Glad to have you here.
Happy birthday.
And Stefan. Hey, how are we doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Hump day.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Steam Deck reviews, NVIDIA. Obviously, I'm already wrong on that one. NVIDIA cancels the ARM. Well, the deal with ARM is blown up. And in actual, not really news, Stadia is dead again. So,
how many times can one service die?
Oh, yeah. We'll get to it. Oh, all right. Sorry. One last check over here.
That's the epitome of, like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. We should save that, but yeah.
Why does anybody even ask that? I mean, is that some kind of existential question? I mean, I understand it. Existential, like, oh, is it? Yeah, well, I will tell you, science tells us it makes a sound. You can also then place a recorder there and you record it making a sound.
I mean, yeah, like the laws of physics don't go away just because nobody's there to observe them.
You know, that is the fancy way of saying, you know, dumb drunk in bar. Hey, do you think the light in the fridge really goes out? I don't know, because I never see it go out. But, of course, because you're in a bar and you're like half drunk and you're asking that question, you're just a moron. But, like, if the tree falls in the forest.
You know what? I watched...
Philosophy is fun, man.
Philosophy
questions.
I love philosophy because anybody can basically teach philosophy. I could basically be a philosophy teacher. Let's face it, it's pretty much made up. I mean, any philosophy majors here? But let's face it. I mean, know that half the NFL are philosophy majors, but let's just say I don't really think it's that really... I wouldn't equate it as the same as, like, I don't know, nuclear physics, I guess.
Yeah,
I did. The real philosophy professor is Kyrie Irving, but sorry, continue, Adam.
I was just gonna say I did watch a YouTube video recently from somebody who covers like science kind of stuff, and they had explained Schrodinger's cat. You know, everyone thinks Schrodinger's cat, you know, like the idea of it, you know, is it dead or is it alive kind of thing. Well, but the thing is that everybody has it wrong. It's actually not what people always say that it is. It was actually a completely different kind of experiment. It just like got somehow like through telephone through the years got simplified into like, if the cat's in the box, do you know if it's alive or dead? Yeah.
And so for the people like me who the philosophy gets as deep as, is the fridge light on really off when you close the door? What is Schrodinger's cat?
I mean it's the same. It's almost the same kind of thing. It's like, hey, if you put a cat in a box, do you know if it's alive or dead? Or like it's something like if you open the box the idea of it being alive or dead
Half alive, half dead.
Yeah, you don't know until you realize or you open the box and confirm or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, that whole thing is not even what the experiment was. Like it goes way beyond that I can't even describe. But yeah.
Yeah, see, again, really, think about that now. You getting paid for this? You're really a tenured professor at a really nice university, and you're getting paid to, like, is this cat dead in the box?
Well, no, it was a physics thing. It was the parallel universe kind of thing. Like what universe, does it live in? So not philosophy, more physics.
I do love that this physics questions basically what someone who takes a big hit, hanging out with the homies, and they all sit there and talk like, is this cat dead in this box?
And yes, Boz, that was the physics girl video.
Well, what is it? I don't understand. So, I think I read about this recently too, for some reason, because it always gets, for some reason, some things always come up again in sort of popular mainstream talk. What? I'm trying to think of the application for it. What was that?
I can't remember. Something about the fridge light being on or not.
Why can't why can't they relate it to something more modern like that? Like, is the fridge light off? Maybe in a quantum universe, the fridge light is still on?
Actually, I do remember as a kid I did have this question at some point, and I was like, if there, at least the fridge at the time, if you open it quick enough, there was just a little bit of delay between the light going on and off. You know what I mean? So like I could kind of see it turn off. So then I was like, oh, okay, so it does go off.
Yeah, I get the problem with when you get the switch, like, it's stuck, and you open the door for a second. It's like, oh, damn it, the bulb. Because changing the fridge bulb is like the worst job in the world.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Because it's always under this cover. It's got one of those core screws. You got to replace, and then of course it's just the switch that's stuck. So,
no graphs. Okay. So yeah, okay. I think we're ready. I think we should move in. We might have Elena join us in a little bit. She's having some technical difficulties, so hopefully she can get here. But I think we should. Oh, and look. There.
All right, perfect timing.
Looks like she is.
Hey.
See, we waited just the right amount of time.
And VC Jester, no, I do not quantum physics, bro. Sorry.
That's the reason why the spinner spins.
Actually, you know what? And Lindsay makes a good point. We're thinking about it all wrong. If the thing should be, if there's a box, does the cat want inside of it? The answer is always yes. Like, it's never not yes. So.
Really?
Oh yeah, cats love boxes. You buy them an expensive piece of. This is the life of a cat. You buy them a really expensive piece of something like furniture or scratcher or something like that. You unbox it. You set it up for them. It's all brand new. They can get all their hair on it, and then they just proceed to hang out in the box and don't do anything with the scratcher.
Then I have to ask, how have cats survived this far? Because that seems like a bad evolutionary trait to want to go into a box.
People basically created cats. They're like human creations. They used to be tigers and stuff, man. Now we're just like, oh, look at you in a box. Let me put some food in there.
Wow, that is rough.
I don't know if that's true, but there's definitely a lot of good feral cats that keep it going. But yeah, I think it's more they aren't as dependent as other animals like dogs.
It's just some things like pandas. People think I hate pandas. I don't actually hate pandas. I just think.
Wait,
and this is an old
pandas?
topic.
What?
No, we're still waiting for Elena to set up. But
Sorry.
Pandas, no, it's fine. Because let me explain the panda thing. Now, I don't hate pandas. I just think it's amazing that they are. It's like a Schrodinger's cat in some ways. It doesn't. It's some kind of some science. Somebody got high somewhere and made that one up. But think about it this way: pandas have to eat their weight. They eat more than their weight in bamboo to survive every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. Like, hey, wake up 7 o'clock. Oh, what do you got to do? I got to start eating bamboo to survive, right? And they're like, and then they reproduce like once every 5 or 10 years or something like that. Like,
that's all they got time for.
Doesn't the mere fact that the panda exists show that evolution is not really true? Because how the hell did pandas get here? You got to wake up at 7 o'clock, and from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., you're eating bamboo just to survive. And you only reproduce once, like every 20 years, and the entire planet is like, oh my God, one new panda. How is that panda still here?
That is a great question. It's philosophy, man.
See, I don't hate pandas. I'm just saying I don't understand it.
Well, you didn't ask that question, or you didn't answer.
You're just hating on pandas.
I'm
There's
just
a difference.
Don't you think that somebody like, hey, you want to try a burger or something? You know, like.
I do it. I've been told by friends who are vegetarian that you can't like instantly jump back to meat. Otherwise, it like messes up your stomach.
Yeah, it's not good.
Ruined you.
Not
Yep.
good.
Well, you could probably get a bamboo burger.
Wait, yeah, but
Like
is it? Wait. Is it because
patty is bamboo.
is it because it's ground, or is it because it has the?
Well, it'd have
The
to be,
bun.
It'd have to be ground. It could be like fried.
So that's what.
slats
Wait.
of
So
bamboo.
that's what makes a
All right.
burger is if
Yeah.
it's ground, right? Is that what you're saying? Anyway, sorry, we don't have to get
Are we
back to this.
reviving that
No,
argument?
we're not getting back. We are starting the show. Elena, you locked and loaded.
Yeah, I hope so. Teams is not cooperating with me today.
Teams, damn you, Microsoft. All right, cool. Then I'm gonna pull this, and Gordon, we should be ready whenever you are.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, damn it, Steam Deck reviews. In this episode of The Full Nerd, Steam Deck reviews. Okay, this time it's going to work. In this episode of The Full Nerd, Steam Deck reviews, NVIDIA ARM deal dead, and Stadia dead again. Welcome to episode 205 of The Full Nerd. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis,
Hello, Internet.
Elena Yee,
Hi, everyone.
and Adam Patrick Murray controlling the vertical and horizontal.
So, Gordon, are you to our pre-show conversation? Are you saying that there's people who think that you don't like pandas? Who are these people?
No, I'm just saying on a previous employer, we had a podcast, and I pointed out that pandas really shouldn't exist because they have to eat their weight in bamboo every day just to survive, and they only procreate like once every decade or two if you're lucky.
Huh.
There's just nothing that would indicate that a panda should be here after all this time.
Dang, I will have to go back and listen to that. I don't remember that. That's
Kind of wish I was a panda.
And then people said I hated pandas because of that. That's not true.
you should make a
I mean,
shirt
it's
that
certainly
just
not
says I don't hate
complimentary.
pandas.
It's just things are taken out of context.
I mean, that's the internet, right? That's what happens on the internet.
That is exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of context, we have the Steam Deck. Actually, no, Brad. Somebody asked this in Discord. Does PC World have a Steam Deck in for testing?
We do not. If we did, we would have posted right along Linus and Gamers Nexus.
Well, actually, no. I don't even know that because I was listening to the Giant Bombcast that happened yesterday, and they got a Steam Deck in, but they're not even allowed to talk about their stuff. So it sounds like Steam Decks are more out in the wild, but only
Yep.
Linus and Steve were even able to show anything. The others are able to acknowledge they have it, but not even show anything. So we don't. But we don't have it.
We do not have it.
No,
so that
we don't
can,
have one.
We can say everything we want.
We could anyway. But it seems like Valve was really targeted with who they focused on for Steam Deck hardware reviews. That's what went up this week. Like Gamers Nexus, Steve and them over there always do great work. They were selected to look at the Steam Deck hardware. Linus obviously is Linus. They got Steam Deck. And somebody who I'd never heard of before, but is pretty awesome, called Phawx. PHAWX also did a preview of it. And they all say it's surprisingly awesome for basically being a tiny, low-powered handheld gaming PC. They all have nothing but good things to say about it.
It is very impressive. You know, I mean, it really does look like this is going to work. It might really work, you know?
Yeah, it was way above my head. But I did watch. So Steve over at Gamers Nexus posted 2 videos. The first one was kind of impression of the hardware. The second one was actually a teardown, which went way deeper than a normal teardown. Like they brought on some engineer guy, Patrick, to like actually look at all the different chips that are on the board and talk about like where they're from and what they do and stuff like that. So way over my head, but it seems like they were like, oh wow, okay, this is they did a lot of the right kind of decisions when making this hardware. So you know.
Yep. Gamers Nexus, Patrick's done a lot of good stuff for him recently as far as nitty-gritty chip stuff, power supply stuff like that. Patrick Stone. Yeah, they came away very complimentary. They say, hey, it feels good. It doesn't run hot. Gamers Nexus said, what did they say? They said specifically it's like extremely well engineered and, makes a lot of sense with what they did with the thermal stuff for what it does. They couldn't talk too much about games. The 3 sites all talked about the same 4 or 5 games, hardware impressions, Forza Horizon 5, Ghost Runner, Dead Cells, and Control. And it's clear that you're going to have to do some settings tinkering to get it to run. Obviously, this is basically a souped-up AMD APU. So, you're going to have to make some visual compromises to get Control really running on this. But they said, native resolution, medium, you'll get 30 frames per second. You should drop some stuff down to make it run a little bit better. But in general, some games were way over the 60 frames per second that, you aim for on a PC. You can be a little more, loose with your frame rates on a handheld console because it's real small right in front of you. And it seems really good. People like it. They say the ergonomics are great. Linus is like me. He has small hands. He said you might have some troubles reaching some of because the Steam Deck is physically large. You might have some troubles
really
reaching some of the corner things, but it wasn't too bad. So, Valve gave some real legit YouTube channels full access to this hardware, and both Steve and the folks over at Gamers Nexus and Linus just say, hey, the hardware at least is the real deal. They can't talk about the software stuff yet. I'm presuming aside from the 5 games that they were allowed to test, or 5 or so games they were allowed to test. So closer to the February 25th launch, I'd expect to see a lot more reviews from the other sites like the Giant Bomb and all them. The sites that focus on the actual gaming experience itself rather than the hardware aspect. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have another round of reviews coming at some point. But people have been psyched about this thing, and it looks like it might just live up to the hype.
It also speaks a lot to the expectations I think people should have RDNA 2, which they talked about at CES as well. But, now we basically have sort of, trying to think, there haven't been any RDNA 2 because Xbox is, no, definitely not. That's
I had it.
But I mean, it's more of a discrete part. This is more of a APU style design.
No, Xbox, of all the consoles, are all APUs as well, custom APUs.
Oh, is it actually all completely on a single SoC? Wow.
Yep.
Okay. I always thought it was like a separate external part. That tells you how much I pay attention to it.
And because the consoles, as well as the Steam Deck, are based on RDNA 2, they can run ray tracing. So let's see here. Gamers Nexus tested Ghost Runner with ray tracing enabled. No, disabled. I forget.
I think
but
Control. I
ray
think you did Control on one of them.
Yeah, obviously ray tracing might be a little rough to do on a portable game.
Of course, yeah.
But something that popped up aside from these reviews this week is upcoming build of SteamOS, the Linux-based operating system that Steam Deck runs on. Is adding in basically AMD FSR, but for all games. Like you can just manually enable it. So that would help a lot with this.
At the OS level. Yeah.
At the OS level, yeah. Or at least the game level, like higher up. Yeah. So that could help with it as well. I'd be curious to see how that looks because the Steam Deck resolution's always already like 1260 by 800 or something like that. Like it's just a little bit more than 720p. I'm not sure if you can reduce that too much like FSR does without getting gnarly jaggies and stuff like that. So we'll have to see how that works, but that could push it even further.
Yeah, actually, Gordon, did you see a shot of the actual chip itself? It was like had a custom plate. That said like it had like the Valve logo and then AMD
I did
on
see
it.
that.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. Did anybody get into the BOM cost of this, or is that really more of a iFixit?
I mean,
some other
I would imagine through the course of Steve's testing, and being able to identify every single piece in there, they probably know it. They probably just can't talk about it.
And a BOM cost is bill of material. That's basically your receipt for all the crap you got to put into a piece of hardware, right? So I'm just wondering.
But Linus did kind of get into it. He compared it to competing handhelds like this, like the Neo, I believe it's called, and there's another one.
Yeah.
And he said those really aren't even competitors because they're roughly the same power, maybe a little bit less, but they cost $1,200 plus. This starts, I believe, at $400,
Yeah.
but the highest end was only $650. So they're like, that's not even real competition. This is literally half the price.
Yeah, most of those are Intel-based systems running off, IGP there. So actually, the performances can be drastically worse in some of them. But yeah, I mean, the cost, like I would say, the thing he was saying was that, like, the biggest downside I saw was that the color accuracy was like, real bad compared to the Aya Neo ones. I mean, it'll be fine enough. Like I'm not like super worried, but those screens on those Aya Neos like are definitely really not, like, one of them has like 4K or something. So yeah, of course it's going to be like $1,400, $1,500, So yeah, it's just not in the same league. Yeah.
I just wonder, because at $400, that is just like a really, really good
Starting at
price
400,
for what you get. I mean, starting, but I mean, $400 to $650
it's
is
the same thing. Yeah.
I would do $650 for the additional storage. I'm guessing that's the difference.
Well,
right?
and actually,
And it has a better screen.
Oh, really? Huh.
yeah, there's a little bit of a coating on it. Yeah, but the transfer, I think it was Linus who looked at the transfer speeds or the loading speeds off of the internal memory and off of also an SD card. And there's definitely a little bit of a difference, but not super bad. Like now I'm like, oh man, should I have gotten the more expensive one? Because the SD card like one actually is probably going to be fine enough, especially if you compare it to like a Switch or something. I mean, so
I'm just wondering
one thing you notice from the teardowns, people have been talking about, can you replace the SSD? And the answer is theoretically yes, if you can find one of the small thumbnail SSDs, which are very hard to find for consumers. But looking at
2230, right? I think is what it is.
Yeah, the excellent teardown that Steve and them at Gamers Nexus did. Like the SSD has like special shielding on it. It's right next to the Wi-Fi chips and stuff like that. So you probably really should not be thinking about upgrading that SSD unless you absolutely have to.
Well, unless you're willing to take the risk of bricking it and just waiting months and months to get another one. So in fact, Valve even released a video that says, "Hey, don't do this, but if you were not to do this, you would remove these screws and then you would remove this part. But you shouldn't do this, and then you remove this part, and then like, yeah, there you go. Don't do this."
Yep.
So they're obviously they're fine with you doing it, but you should accept
Valve.
the consequences of taking the unit apart and breaking it.
I mean, but it also sounds like for most people, running off the SD card is
It's not bad, right?
Is not horrible. It's not going to kill it.
I guess I'm just surprised because I mean, I know everybody's going to go, well, the reason why those other handheld PCs cost so much is because of the Intel chip, but I don't think that could just be it.
I think it's part of it, but I think it's also
definitely
the screens,
The screens,
but
and
also I'm sure like the quantities, like scale, economy of scale. Yeah,
Yep.
Economy of scale, and I'm sure like those companies put these out because there's nothing like it. They're a niche product that, if you wanted to get a handheld gaming PC, you had to go buy their stuff. Valve just wants this to happen, so I'm sure they're selling this for pretty damn near or below cost.
Yeah,
because this is an impressive piece of hardware for what you're getting.
That's why I'm wondering if it's actually a loss leader, almost like a traditional, console where you would lose money for a few years in order to sort of build up that base. I mean, maybe Valve, I don't think they'd want to lose money, but maybe they're fine just sort of breaking mostly even because...
Well, I ran a piece, I'll probably update it soon. I ran a piece right after the Steam Deck was announced about why it runs Linux. Basically because ever since Windows 8 came out, Valve and Gabe Newell was one of the most outspoken people saying, hey, what's up with this Windows Store? They're trying to make Windows a walled garden. This is crap. And ever since then, Valve's been working real hard to boost Linux. And just making this Steam Deck exist, putting it out there as a loss leader. Like now, all of a sudden, all these games run on Linux now. Valve's been working on Proton for a long time. It's been mostly there, but having this coming out, having it have so much attention is putting a lot of focus on it, and a lot of developers are starting to make, their games, make sure they work on Linux. All the easy anti-cheat and BattleEye and all those things that never worked on Linux are now working on Linux because this is happening. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't mind getting it out there cheap just to strengthen that escape hatch in case they need it.
Yeah. It's good too.
Real quick, I do want to clarify. The chat is pointing out, nice people in the chat, that there is actually Aya Neos with Vega graphics, like AMD based solutions. It's not all Intel.
Oh, okay.
But and a lot of the ones are Intel. Yeah.
But with AMD
Vega, it's the older chips.
It's not like it's $400 cheaper, right?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing worth pointing out is battery life. because that's obviously a big concern with stuff like this. Valve said anywhere from 2 to 8 hours, depending what you're doing. Gamers Nexus was never able to get 8 hours. They never got beyond 6 hours of battery life, and some AAA games got as little as 90 minutes. Steve, Gamers Nexus, says you're going to want to make sure VSync is on and you cap the frame rates to the 60 hertz screen resolution if you can to get the most batteries. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere close to the numbers that Valve said. But, that's reasonable for what this is. When I travel with my Switch, I already travel with a power bank and just leave it plugged into the USB-C and just let the power bank run the whole time. It sounds like you're going to want something like that on hand for this too.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine anything really giving you tons and tons of battery life on the internal battery. Just carry a USB-C power bank at this point, so it's not a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, you can get them real cheap these days. So.
Yeah, and actually Steve did a lot of testing to show, if there's extra heat built up by charging, is it able to charge at the full capacity while it's gaming? Because sometimes the Switch can't do that as well. So, they said it pretty much all fine. So
I wonder how. The thing that always gets me about portable devices though is this. Can anybody know how serviceable is the battery? Because especially a lot of these really low capacity batteries, they just the service life is like nothing. It feels like you got to replace them within 24 months, and I'm wondering how easy that is for an end user.
I know Steve's teardown got into that. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
That was actually one of his negative points.
Yeah, the chat was saying that it's glued in.
Or lots of glue. Like it was a little harder to get out than normal.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is a bummer, but I can understand the decisions that were made to make this exist to begin with. Like, it's crazy that this is a portable handheld gaming device. You got to make the glue sucks. But,
yeah.
I mean, but like you were saying, Valve says don't open this, but if you were going to, here's how you do it. I think Valve is doing what they can. They've always been a very PC first kind of company. I don't think they were trying to be jerks about it.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, I know everybody gets angry when they hear glue and mobile devices, but the glue is not there to be anti-consumer. Usually it's just to make it feel like it's solid. You don't nobody likes to pick something up and have it squeeze like a sponge. So it makes it more solid, makes it more rigid. The battery's not going to bounce. There's actually a lot of real solid reasons to use glue, but that is a bummer because just knowing a lot of my devices and the batteries go flat, you're just kind of screwed, especially, the smartwatches and the earbuds, the batteries, those LiPo batteries are just terrible. So,
yep. The other thing worth mentioning, the only minor negative that really popped up was the haptic feedback. Linus said that the feel of the controller is right up there with his favorite console controllers. So in general, it feels great. I mean, a lot of us have used the Steam controller. That felt great too. This is an evolution of that, basically. They couldn't find room or power to put haptic feedback in the thumbsticks. So if you're used to Rumble, you're not going to get that in the thumbsticks. There's still a weak version in the touchpads, but no haptic feedback in the thumbsticks.
Is that a deal breaker for controller players, Elena? Adam?
I use controller a lot, actually. I love haptic feedback, but for this device, with battery life being a concern, I think that's a reasonable thing to leave out. If it was an option to turn it off and I owned one of these, I'd probably turn it off to get the extra half hour plus of battery life.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's nice to have, but it's not necessary. I think even having just some is better than zero. I think if they had taken it out completely, that would be actually a bigger concern for me because it'd just be too jarring a difference.
Yeah, it's hard because, and people don't realize this on phones, and maybe it's just because, somebody like me switches phones a lot, but the haptic feedback changes a lot from phone to phone. You can start to really feel it, and bad haptics in a phone, you can feel. Same thing with the controller. I actually even say even more so. So it is a little bit of a bummer, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
The other interesting tidbit is that since these are basically running, because this is a Linux-based operating system, it's running an emulated-ish, not quite, version of Windows. They did see some issues with some games. Forza Horizon 5 was one of the ones that Valve let them test. And even when they got it up to about 60 frames per second, the open world and lighting engine would make weird physics issues for Linus. So there's still some software work to happen there. I expect it to get straightened out pretty quickly because I have the feeling this is going to be a very popular device. But yeah, so there's still going to be some rough edges. This is still like when it was first announced, I called this a Nintendo Switch for PC nerds. And I mean, to me, that's really like reading the reviews, this impressive piece of hardware. That really feels like what it is to me. Like you're going to want to know how to be able to tinker with settings and all that kind of stuff to get the best out of it.
So, but it will, I mean, because they want to have Proton, they want to have their, Steam OS kind of pushed. They will sell a Windows version?
No, I think that you have to do it yourself. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I thought I read somewhere that they actually don't recommend like Windows like per se for installation. Like you can do it, but they don't necessarily recommend you do it. Kind of like we don't recommend you open this, but you can do it.
Yeah, I fully 100% believe that because this is a PC that's controlled by a controller that's bolted onto it, basically. So Windows isn't really made for that, so I can totally understand that. But I think it's super cool that Valve's like, it's a Linux gaming PC. You just hold it in your hand, so you can do whatever you want. You totally don't want to do that, but you can if you want.
Yeah, and it would go against everything Valve has stood for. Sort of the openness of the PC to say, hey, no, you can install another OS on here other than ours. That would go against everything they've sort of pledged. So I'm guessing they're going to have drivers if you do want to do it, and for most part, it sounds like it's mostly off the shelf hardware.
I mean, honestly, I'm curious. I know it's not recommended, but there's a part of me that's like, ooh, I want to see how Windows is going to run on there. I don't know if I'll do it with my own, but
if we had one to test that I didn't spend my own $650 on, then that'd be one of the first things that I did.
Yeah, I'll leave that to somebody else.
Well, I'm sure you could wipe it and reinstall the stock OS again, but
I mean, it's a good question. I don't know what reinstalling Steam OS would be like either.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just kind of wonder. So, I've the long view has been handheld gaming is pretty much dead, killed by smartphones. I know that we have the Switch. The Switch is a surprise hit, but is there anything else really that's ever caught on for handheld gaming other than the retro folks who basically want to relive the being 12 again? But
do not discount those because a lot of people buy those.
A lot of people buy them, but I'm just wondering.
The Analog just came out. Yeah,
Analog Pocket has been blown up.
Someone who got that.
Well, but I guess what I mean is like a real company, like a real
Game
company
Boy or Game Gear
to toss a ton of money into it. Yeah, and like, hey, we're going to go into it. So hobbyists doing something or a GoFundMe, wherever the heck those small group whatever. Raising money to build stuff, that's kind of different than like Sony Sony had the Vita years ago, and that feels like that got crushed by phones, right?
No, they got crushed by piracy. That in the PSP, like it cracked wide open. So
really,
I can do whatever the hell I want on it. Yeah,
really. So you're blaming?
No, that it was. I mean, of course, part of it was phones, but no, like. Yeah, Sony has come out and said, "Hey, listen, we're not going to support this anymore because it's just a Wild West. Like, why dump all this development money into it if people are just going to crack it?" So
that's actually another thing that came out this week that's separate from the reviews. Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, said they're not going to be putting work into making Fortnite compatible with this, which is a bummer. But it makes sense. Epic also runs Easy Anti-Cheat, one of the big anti-cheat things that hasn't worked on Linux forever. They've been putting work in to make it work for this. So they are not ignoring this whatsoever. But they said, because it is a Linux-based thing, you can install your own kernels, do all kinds of things. And it just, with the amount of players that Fortnite has, it makes piracy and circumventing that a big issue. So that's why they're not putting work into Fortnite making it happen, which is a bummer. But
I would have thought that, sense. Epic's whole point is like, we want to be everywhere as long as you don't charge us money, you're 30% to get there. I would have thought they would say, let's go ahead and do it, even though it's technically a competing product, but why not do it?
But yeah, so it's not, but but they are putting work into Easy Anti-Cheat, so other Epic kind of games will be able to run in there. But a lot of the secret sauce comes through Steam's Proton technology, Valve's Proton technology, which comes through Steam. So you're going to mostly want to stick the Steam Deck games on the Steam Deck anyway. So
Which that's the big question. And if all the hardware reviewers are like, hey, listen, we can't talk about the the software side of it other than what they had cleared, but that's kind of it's who cares about the hardware if the software's not there. So we will see.
I
That's
agree.
the last big question.
I agree. That's 100% the $1 million question for this device. That being said, I find this initial batch of reviews very encouraging, and I find the fact that both Steve at Gamers Nexus and Linus were clearly very positive about this overall is a good indicator that it'll run fine 90% of the time.
And also,
Like, that's just a number I'm pulling out of my butt, but their general response to this makes me think that it's going to run relatively well.
and targeted too, to say, hey, you know what, we're going to put this in front of Steve, who I mean, if it was bad, he was going to tear it apart, so they felt pretty confident about it. So
Yeah, that's why I'm not even mad about not getting one, because if Valve is clearly hyper targeted who they gave this to, if you're going to give it to two big PC reviewers kind of deal, I'm real glad that Steve and Gamers Nexus got one. So
Do you think this thing's going to really make it? I don't know why Adam thinks I'm a hater, but I mean, again, I have a closet full of, those Steam, whatever the heck, the Steam links.
Steam links?
I literally
We
have
were
5 of
collecting
them. I can't give them away. I have a controller, and having witnessed Steam machines, it's nice to see, like, wow, this is like sort of the culmination of they've taken all those sort of failures and they've taken the best all the lessons they've learned and sort of poured it into this. But is this really gonna, and I'm not a hater, because I think it's really impressive, especially for the price. The value is really there, but is it going to really be enough for developers to support it? I mean,
I think so.
I kind of wonder what the install base has to be for developers to say, yeah, hey, we're going to put real work into making sure everything works, because that has killed most of the portable initiatives that I can think of. The
I
original NVIDIA Shield, it was just simply lack of title support that really killed it.
Well, the original NVIDIA Shield was Android based. This is a PC, even though it's running Linux. It runs Windows games.
That's Linux.
I think
Linux is
that I think that this is instantly going to become one of the more popular standalone gaming SKUs. Like, they're going to sell way more of these than Acer's going to sell a Nitro laptop. Like, these are going to be ultra popular, I think.
Boy, I don't know.
Like, if you add up all the gaming laptops, it'd be different. But I think it's just like a standalone, like, hey, there's a Steam Deck. Here's the most popular gaming laptop. I bet you this will be right up there in terms of units sold.
Do you think so? I feel like
I do.
from all the people who've expressed a lot of enthusiasm about it, I feel like it's still a pretty specific audience at the moment. I don't know how mainstream it's going to get, really. I'm not saying that to crap on it. I'm just curious, like, where your opinion's coming from, just because of my impression of, like, who's, like, really kind of glumped onto this at the outset.
All right. My opinion is based on the fact that there's clearly intense amounts of interest in it just across the internet. Every forum that I go in on Twitter, like, there's tons of questions. There's tons of interest in this. And just the PC enthusiasts that I know in real life, like, there's some folks that I know who basically only play Minecraft on their desktops, and they still ask me questions. So what's up with the Steam Deck? Because this would be cool to play this on the bus on the way to work or whatever. So
I
I
guess
think once reviews start rolling out, I mean, it's $500. It's under $500.
it's $400. $400, which is really killer. I'm not sure. I mean, like, if you look at the Acer Nitro gaming laptops, those things are like, they've been like top 10 laptops on Amazon for like years almost. And
That's the reason I thought of that one.
I just sort of think there are literally there's probably more than 1 million, definitely, right? They sell a buttload of those laptops. To be on that list, they must sell a lot of them. So
Yeah, because that's what I'm thinking, where it's like, because you can still get a budget gaming laptop for about like $700 to $800, and it'll still play a decent amount of games. And I'm wondering, like, fact of the matter is, a handheld is still pretty specialized. Like, yes, you can install Windows on it if you want to. If you want to dock it, you could still do your taxes on it. The same old thing we talk about all the time. But I feel like, just from the perspective of like a mainstream person, like, if they're in a store and they're like, I want to play games, like, I'm still kind of wondering how many of them would pick up a Steam Deck over an actual laptop.
I'm curious to see how many people who would have upgraded to a 3050 or another graphics card for $400+ will be like, all right, I'll get one of these instead.
Actually, somebody in chat did say that, hey, I can get behind the Steam Deck as opposed to an overpriced GPU. I can't remember who said it. Sorry.
I guess, but I mean, it's clear, Linus, Steve, other people that have touched this thing. The hardware is there. This is real hardware. The price is there. Is the software there though? And it's
for when the next 2 weeks.
Well, and I don't really personally. I don't think it would. It's gonna I'm not sure it would outsell some of those low end gaming laptops, because I think, what a lot of that's driven by is, again, hey, you need a laptop for all the other stuff in your life, and then can I play Fortnite? Can I play Valorant? And I'm not, sort of like those free to play huge game ecosystems really drive so much PC gaming. Is there Minecraft? Maybe there'll be Minecraft on there. And then, and again, I know that there is a lot more controller support in games, but I still think the vast majority of most of PC games is still done mouse keyboard for shooters. Because I mean, the place that PC has always ruled on is shooters, and that's really mouse and keyboard, right? So those are all kind of things that, in my book, add up to why would I buy one of these Steam Decks. And I think it's cool. Like, hey, $400 is almost like, it'd be interesting just to mess with at $400, but then am I going to spend my gaming time to play on this instead of on my desktop? No. So
no, but when you're going to work or you're traveling on an airplane, you're doing whatever, you can play Assassin's Creed Black Flag on this. You can't do that with anything else.
Well, no, and I mean, and Brad says this all the time. Same thing. It's like I've got a nice machine at home, at my office, or even on the PC or on the TV. So it's just like, but sometimes I just want to, Lindsay's watching something on the TV, and I play the Switch. So it's the same kind of like I play the Switch all the time at home. This is an and device. I don't think anyone's ever going to look at a Acer Nitro 5 in this and be like, No, this is definitely an and device. But I still think they're going to sell gangbusters. I'm with Brad. I think they're going to outsell like something like a Nitro 5. Yeah.
We'll have to see. But I mean, definitely, it's at the $400. It's going to sell like hotcakes, because that is just giving the thing away practically.
Yeah,
so
they're not going to be able to keep up with demand for the first runs.
Well, that's the other
something that's worth pointing out. Like you were just talking about, like this is underpowered and stuff like that. This runs SteamOS. It can take full advantage of Steam in-home streaming. So if you do already have a powerful gaming PC, and this is your and device, especially if you're sitting on your couch in your own home, like Adam was just talking about, you can use your full-powered gaming PC and stream the game to your Steam Deck.
Which in the battery life is obviously going to be better.
Yeah. Battery life would be better. Frame rate would be better. Latency might or might not, depending on your network, but this thing's pretty versatile, it seems like.
Why wouldn't I just use my Steam Links?
It is using Steam Link.
No, I have Steam Links.
I know, but it is using Steam Link.
Just a couple quotes that I thought were worth pointing out from Linus's review. He calls it arguably the most innovative gaming PC in 20 years or more, which I think says a lot. Linus has reviewed a lot of stuff. And just a quote that I loved that made sure, because all these reviews were long videos, so we did a text synopsis and embedded the videos. If you haven't had time to go check out the videos, you can go read our article on PCWorld.com. We made sure to get this Linus quote in there just because it's hilarious. Talking about the haptic feedback, he called it, at the moment, haptics on this device are a poo stain on an otherwise crisp white sheet.
That was funny.
That's, I think I would call room service and say, you need to change sheets in this hotel room before I come in here. That's pretty bad.
It made me laugh so hard.
Well, one thing I am curious about, just because somebody mentioned it in chat, I am wondering who's going to be the first to try GeForce Now on the Steam Deck.
I'm real curious to see GeForce Now. I'm real curious to see, because it is a PC. Like, how does Valorant run on it? Does it run on it? How does Minecraft run on it? Minecraft's not through Steam, but you should be able to kludge it in some way, because it is a Linux gaming PC. And I'm really hoping that some of the initial software reviews, especially from sites like Steve, who isn't Gamers Nexus, who isn't necessarily into, reviewing games, but more in the interest of the technology, I'm hoping that some of those initial reviews cover some of that stuff as well.
definitely.
It'd be awesome to have a portable Minecraft device.
Would you agree with that? This is the most innovative gaming PC in 20 years. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, everything has pretty much been iterative for 20 years, and I'm someone who's been playing here for 20 years too, and I think I could get behind that. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I mean, although you could argue, well, is
I guess it
stream
depends on what you
gaming-
call a PC.
Well, is
yeah.
stream gaming more innovative in a lot of ways, or is this? I mean, this is sort of traditional, fat client. This is my hardware. Pixels are right in front of me. That's I can get behind that. I mean, really, yeah. I mean, they're really what's really been new. We've gotten faster. We've gotten better. We've gotten more RGB.
Oh,
but
actually, I mean, VR, right? I know,
Yeah.
I don't
I mean,
know.
no, actually, that's a really perfect. That is a perfect example, Adam. Now, let me point this out. In addition to Steam Links and the Steam controller, I also have a Valve Index that I paid real
And
money
it's awesome.
for. And it's awesome. And I can tell you, ain't nobody's used it in like the 8 months we've gotten. It's just sort of sits there collecting dust. And is it the
think
same
that's
thing?
different.
The hype, VR, which is awesome. And I fully endorse it, but
I have a HTC Vive, and it is the same boat as you. Like, it's awesome whenever we do sit around and play the Valve demos and do all the different games and everything. It's wonderful. But that's a totally different, intense and solitary. You're stuck in this little square in your room kind of a deal in Europe. Like, this is the AND device. This is the thing you take on the bus. This is the thing you sit on your couch and play. It's not closing yourself off to the world and sitting there in isolation by yourself.
And
So,
VR is new and different. It's like they're still trying to figure out the best way to make games that work for VR. This is just literally a traditional gaming machine. Like, when you think about it, it's got inputs, it's got a screen, it's just the form
I think the
factor.
closest analogy to this would be the Meta Quest 2. I hate that name. The Oculus Quest 2. Because that thing's, $300. It made VR accessible for the first time. Something like the Valve Index, you still need a high-powered gaming PC. The thing costs $800 or $1,000. This is, made to move and made to be used often. I think VR is not.
how is Quest doing? I don't know how.
Actually, they came out last Christmas and said they sold a buttload.
Right, but I mean, they
And
sold a buttload of indexes too, right? We had to get on a wait list just to get the thing.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The Quest 2 is the most popular VR headset on Steam right now. They just updated the numbers early when February switched over, and there was a big jump in VR adoption, and a lot of it was because of the Oculus Meta Quest 2. So I'm intrigued. I'm super seeing these reviews. Like, I still like the proof is in the pudding for these. I have a feeling there will be rough edges with the software. I have a feeling it'll work fine 90% of the time, but that last 10% make all the difference for people. I can't wait to see the software review of these. But from everything I'm seeing so far, I did not put down $650 to pre-order one of these things. But now that I'm seeing the reviews, I would definitely buy one.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, at $400, it really does tip that, like, yeah, what the hell? I'll just screw around, right? And, and I can see that. I can legit see that because the hardware looks like it'd be a blast to just mess with. So,
Well, both
Especially if you like indie games, if you like older games, if you're not playing necessarily Call of Duty Modern Warfare or whatever the newest version is, even the baseline SSD, I think, is 256 gigs. And that'll hold a ton of games. So if you're playing the older games, if you're playing retro games, the kind of things that'd be really good on a thing like this. So I'm really intrigued by it.
I'm just afraid, though, that, like, the only company that has been given permission to ever have a successful portable product and continually is Nintendo. And I don't know, nobody else really has ever cracked the code. And I hope this does, but Nintendo really just, like, they have magic all the time. They are able to do it over and over and over again. So,
Yep.
yeah, that
and I
doesn't
think
make me
it's
a
gonna-
hater.
No, it's funny because Nintendo's thing is they're always super polished. Like, they're great experiences and stuff like this. I really do think this is going to be a switch for PC nerds. I think there's going to be rough edges. You're going to have, some things to go through. But I think it's
for
going to be
tinkers.
awesome in a different way. Yeah.
For tinkers, yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
also what you get with something that's open, right? So it's not going to be as polished as a closed system.
Also, I never said you're a hater. I just said you hate pandas. I'm just kidding.
I don't hate
I've
pandas
never
either.
said that.
I'm just amazed. I just think they prove evolution doesn't really exist. That's all. If you think about it.
Just kidding. We do have some questions over on Discord. Master Procrastinator, friend of the show, asked Steam Deck question: what's the main thing everyone will be outraged about?
Fortnite not running on it.
I think there's going to be a lot of rough edges, and I think people are going to go like, in having gone through, because you go through the hype builds up to an unimaginable level. We have basically really good endorsements from people that have touched hardware. Sometimes that valley of despair for hype launches is really rough to get out of. So that's what I think is people are going to get these in their hands. And it's not going to be perfect because it's not a consumer. I mean, it's not a Switch, right? It's not sort of like all the sharp edges have been ground off to me. It's going to be intentionally a little rough, and I think some people are going to freak out over it. That's what I think is going to happen.
Go ahead, Brad.
No, you can go ahead.
I was going to say kind of similar to Gordon's. I think from my perspective, I think what's going to happen is all the things that you can do with it, people are going to find out aren't as good as it sounds on paper. So like the whole installing Windows, right? Things like that, where it's like you can do it, but I think in practice, it's not going to be as polished as people would hope. And so it's going to be just a disappointment for a lot of people who are like stoked about it.
What I was going to say is I think that 9 out of 10 games will run just fine on it. As long as you're not playing older games or something maybe not even 9. I think 8 out of 10 games will run fine enough. Like, to me, this is going to be a good enough kind of device. But I think a lot of people are going to have that one game that just something's weird about it. The text is wrong or the controls don't work great. And that one game will irritate you. But I think in general, people will like it.
Wow.
People need to remember that like you were saying, it's going to have rough edges. Everyone makes fun of Linux gaming and has traditionally. This is a Linux gaming PC. So Valve's been doing a lot of work. Since this got announced, the whole development ecosystem has been doing a lot of work to make this as polished as possible, but it still is a Linux gaming PC, so there will be rough edges.
Linux game PCs, no offense, but they're clearly a very, very small, but it's a very small subset. I mean, isn't that, you're basically already taking a portable device running Linux, and like you've basically got a really, really small group there.
I think it's going to run better than you think. Valve's been putting a ton of work into Proton the last 2 or 3 years. Like, I actually did, if people are interested in the history of it, I did an explainer on what is Valve Proton, explains it in context of the Steam Deck. I recommend going and reading that if you're not familiar with it. But Valve's been working on this behind the scenes for several years at this point, and it's gotten really, really good. Like, the biggest downside you could say to it was the fact that those anti-cheat systems didn't work on it, and now they do. So
yeah, and I do want to point out, because I think having Proton, having a Linux gaming, operating system alternative to Windows is incredibly valuable, because you need something to balance Microsoft and keep them from going full on Apple, right? Closing everything off, and you need it to be open. You need the PC to be open. Linux OS does that for us. At the same time, please go do all that hard work for me. I will say you are doing hard work, but it's only when things get bad here that I'm going to leave. And I
think that's the whole point of the Steam Deck. Like, people are going to buy this thing, man, and it's going to make Linux gaming more popular and viable than ever.
I guess, but I think the hard thing is there are 50,000 games in the Steam library, 50,000 games in applications, 50,000. If you can't get a lot of those developers to, hey, you need to optimize for the Steam Deck because people are having a bad experience, I'm not doing that. There's nobody bought this thing, right? I think it's developer relations is so important now. The important part of developer relations is you do it for me or you pay me to do it. And that's really what it feels like it's become, because they're under such stress to make money doing the next thing. They're not going to go back and backport something to make it work. I just kind of think even the muscle of Intel, Microsoft have not always gotten everybody to support, right, for new initiatives. So expecting people just to do this out of the kindness of their heart, I don't know if that's something that's going to work, you know?
I think that it depends on how Valve handles the controller. Like, I think what Valve does with the way it handles Steam, handles controller inputs in general, is very versatile and flexible, and it can build around a lot of that. And there are already users who make custom profiles for like the Steam controller and stuff like that. If they can figure out good, be it from Valve or be it from users' profiles for these games, and make it somehow so that that's the default if you're running the Steam Deck, I think it could alleviate a lot of that. But we'll see how Valve does on that front.
I guess because I think back again, the Nvidia Shield, which was just a wonderful form factor. It was just, you know, an Android phone with a screen with on the controls. And one of the things is like mapping controls to their control was like they had an application that would map the controls, and believe me, it was not fun to try to do that, and it just sort of ended up it never worked out. And I hope it works. I do hope it works. But I'm always skeptical until I see it's there.
When you talk about the control stuff, that's where Steam's already got on lock, especially with the Steam controller, like having the profiles. You can map everything. You can download other people's like profiles, like that. The controls I don't think are going to be what there. I think it's more the copy protection, the DRM, that's going to break
the UI
something.
too, right? They have to also.
Well, no, big picture mode is actually pretty good. Yep. Yeah, or whatever they're calling it. You know, yeah. So
we'll see. The initial hardware reviews are real good. So.
Yeah. Friend of the show, David MSG 6800 XT is asking, what do you anticipate will be the popular games on the Steam Deck?
Popular games that you play right now that run on it. Dota 2. Yeah. I think indie games. I think, like I said, like I'd love to be able to play old Assassin's Creed games and stuff. I think it'd run just fine on this. Like that kind of stuff would be awesome. This would be the ultimate backlog killer. Like the games that I won't sit there. Yeah. Like I wouldn't sit here and play Assassin's Creed Black Flag on my PC today. But if I'm hanging out on a bus, yeah, let's get into that again. That'd be great.
Also for me, like as I've gotten older, it's harder for me to play RPGs either on a TV or a monitor. Like I prefer RPGs on the handheld now because it's easier to just pick up, go, hey, you know what, I'm done. You know, and I do it for long stretches of time. So the Steam Deck is gonna be my RPG machine. Like the ones that I haven't got around to that aren't on Steam or on Switch. I mean,
so you know, I do have a question. How do we have any idea how well this would do in multiplayer games? Because it feels like single player experience is just sort of like pulling out an album and like, hey, that's cool, but it's all about multiplayer now. I need to play against other people. This should do as well. I mean, is this going to really work for that? Because it feels like so much of the PC gaming experience is also now multiplayer.
It depends. Again, I think you're going to have to be realistic about what the strengths and weaknesses of this thing is. Like you were saying, keyboard and mouse reign supreme for obvious reasons on the PC. Like if you're playing on a 1260 by 800 screen with controllers with no haptic feedback and everything, like you're not going to be great in a competitive multiplayer game. And you also have to take into account the fact that it doesn't have an LTE thing. You're going to need to be able to connect to Wi-Fi somehow. So I personally think that you will be able to obviously play multiplayer games on it, but I think single player games would be more of the target for this.
I will say that there's people out there who got, what was that last game? I think it was Doom, the Doom 2016 or maybe Doom Eternal. Somebody beat it with like a Guitar Hero controller or something like that. I mean, people can like, if you get good with something, you can get good. If you're comfortable with the controller form factor, you're gonna be good with this. Like, I'm not worried about that.
But that's like saying, hey, this guy just climbed Everest, you know, in like 4 days, and like he just had like 2 Cliff Bars.
Exactly.
You can do it. No. Yeah. You're going to be seeing my frozen body on the Mount Everest for the next 500 years because I'm never going to make it.
I'm just saying it's not like somebody's, you know, who's going to pick it up and just be like, I don't know how to use this. You know, like people get used to what they're doing and they can actually get real good with it and like customize it. It's even got the custom triggers on the back. Like, I mean, there's definitely ways to make it your own. Like it's got like so much available to you. The touchpads, even the it's got gyro or gyroscopic control. If you hover your thumb over one of the sticks, you can use gyro. So it literally has every kind of control put method you would want in it, so you can make it your own and control it however you want.
I guess what I'm just wondering is if you would use it for multiplayer. I mean, maybe there's sort of like,
yes,
I mean,
I would.
Joystick.
It depends on the game.
Driving. I guess for a driving game, it could work, right? Because that's.
Well, I play first-person shooters with controller all the time. It's my preferred method, and I do very well on shooters. So
I saw that face.
yeah, like.
Wow, it's like they made it for you, Adam.
Yeah.
All those people playing shooters with controllers.
Before we wrap this up, because I think the people watching this right now might be particularly interested in it. I've mentioned these already, but I did a couple articles back when the Steam Deck was first announced that I think people on this listening to this might particularly like. Like if we did a synopsis of these reviews, and I included a list of some of these in there today. I did why does the Steam Deck run Linux, blame Windows, and I also did an explainer on what is Valve Proton. If you're interested in this, I highly recommend going and checking both of those pieces out. Not just because I wrote them. I wrote them because I find it super interesting. I think y'all might as well. So I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of that.
Awesome. We do have maybe two more questions. Liquid R, friend of the show, asks if the Steam Deck can provide a stellar user experience in ease of use and performance, could be a successful Trojan horse for SteamOS 3 on the desktop.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to get, because the problem with SteamOS is there's just nobody bothers to support it. Because why? Because Microsoft has backed off of the closure of the OS, so why do it, right? So I think I encourage them to continue to support it. Although here's my question though.
The problem with SteamOS, I will say before you ask the question, is that it runs Linux. Continue.
No, but I mean it should, and it needs to. There needs to be an out. I fully endorse that of somebody else doing all that hard work, and then I will not support it until that's the way it is. And I'm pretty sure I saw Linus called it a handheld portable gaming PC or something like that, right? Is it a console or is it a handheld gaming PC?
It's a PC. Didn't we have this talk last time? It's a PC. It has to be a PC.
It's a console.
We had a pretty strenuous argument about this in the Discord.
Who won?
I don't think there were any winners of that.
Well,
there are no winners.
But I mean, none of us won. None of us are Linus. None of us have touched it. He's touched it. Obviously, he's saying it's a handheld gaming PC. It seems like that's what it is to me.
Great. Glad to finally see it.
Functionally out of the box, it's going to be one thing. I think what you can do with it makes it another thing. So.
Well, but I mean the yes, but also the argument is okay. But isn't Xbox also a PC? How is the Xbox not a PC?
Well, you sound like those Mac people. Say, well, the Mac is a PC. Well then why are you arguing that the Mac is better than PC if it is a PC? You cannot argue Mac is better than PC and is also a PC. It cannot be better than itself. That's like some Schrodinger's cat thing, right? In a refrigerator with the lights off. It doesn't. No.
Well, we have Alan Turing in the chat. He says if it's x86, it's a PC, and that's how I see it too.
I disagree with that. I think the consoles are very PC-like. That's the reason we're seeing so much cross-platform stuff these days. But I think, like Microsoft made this argument today, talking about its app policies. It's the same kind of thing Epic actually said in the past. Like, it depends on whether it's a focused device, like the consoles are there to play games, whereas this is obviously you're buying it to play games, but you'll be able to install tax software on it. You'll be able to install all this other stuff. It can be used as a general purpose device, and to me, that's the difference. Some of the early promotion materials, they actually showed it hooked up to an external monitor, like running other stuff on it and stuff like that, and I thought that was super cool. That speaks to part of the reason why this is so awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a steal at $400. It's just a steal, right? So,
I can't wait for those software reviews. Can't wait to see it.
Okay. Well, I think. I think that's all the Steam Deck talk. We'll obviously talk more about it as things get closer. More reviews will lift and people will have stuff in their hands. So yeah, I'm excited. Both Keith and I have our own pre-orders in, so we will see how it goes.
You know what it reminds me of though is the NVIDIA Shield,
Oh, the NVIDIA Shield. If
which
only
is running on ARM.
Yeah, if only it was. If only that deal with ARM went through. What happened, Gordon? What happened?
Well, obviously I'm wrong on that one, but I mean that was clearly one of those you're just gonna like take you got to buy that lottery ticket once in a while. Basically, what happened was I guess the deal to NVIDIA and ARM's deal to sell NVIDIA and SoftBank's deal to sell ARM to NVIDIA got blown up. It was $40 billion in cash and stock. Mark Hochman has a story on PCWorld.com. You can go read that. Basically, yeah, everybody's just kind of they're giving up because they are reading the wins of everybody saying they're against that from mostly regulators, American, British, Chinese regulators are all against it. Everybody wants ARM to remain Rick's bar in Casablanca.
So do all the other big tech companies, to be fair. Like, yes, the regulators are against it, but so are Apple, Samsung, Qualcomm. Like, all the big ARM licensees are against it as well.
And I guess SoftBank is going to say, yeah, well, we're going to IPO ARM, which I don't know. I mean, it feels to me like ARM is damaged now, because now no matter what, ARM can, your big cash out for Apple or Google or somebody to buy, it's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. So what exactly?
IPO?
What exactly is it? Where does that? It's funny because I just think it's like ARM is fundamentally weaker now after this deal, which is a bummer in a way because I mean it is a very, very important piece of technology. I don't know
I think
how
NVIDIA would have pushed it real hard, but I think keeping, if it's possible, ARM as a neutral party, it does not make it weaker. I think this might, drive home the fact that it's good for ARM to be a neutral party so that all these other companies can build their chips off of its technology.
I guess maybe, or they just think like, yeah, we gotta, hey, Risk is looking pretty tasty right now, right? So there's a lot of support for Risk these days. You know what kills me though is like, how the hell? So apparently SoftBank, NVIDIA was like, hey, walking down the street and like, hey, they're walking down the street and SoftBank's like, hey, buddy, you got a second? Well, what's up? You want to look in this trunk? Yeah, what do you got? I'm gonna sell you ARM. Really? No, ARM out of your trunk? I mean, check this out, right? And then, the whole thing blows up and like, what kills me though is like, how the hell does SoftBank charge a restocking fee? Like a $1.25 billion stocking fee, like restock. Like, hey, you got to figure NVIDIA's like, yeah, this, this probably wasn't going to happen anyway. We took a shot. Hey, where's that one? Like what? $1.25 billion restocking fee that SoftBank is charging. I think restocking fee really gets to it because like they got nothing out of this.
That's a lot of zeros. But I'm sure it helps soften the blow because I'm sure going through all these headaches, preparing all this stuff, arguing with all the regulators and all that stuff costs a lot of money for ARM and NVIDIA both. Like I'm sure ARM put a lot of money into trying to make this happen. So that is, I think, what that is for.
I don't know. It looks like it's pretty easy just to take the thing and put it back on the shelf, man. Like 1.25 billion seems excessive. Like
that's a lot of zeros. Maybe they were smart to go ask NVIDIA. I think this deal happened at a really terrible time. Like the reason why this deal started to happen, I think, is because of the timing. NVIDIA's stock has just been ridiculously good. So that's part of the reason why a lot of this was due to stock, because their valuation's so high right now that they can say, hey, we'll buy this. It's the same reason that Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard right now, because their stock is through the roof because of the pandemic. Activision Blizzard's is low because of all the controversies. Hey, time to swoop in and do this. I think that's what was happening here. But it also works against them because right now, controlling chips is like a major multinational governments are getting pissy kind of issue. And that's really what just blew it up for this. Like Intel's pushing hard to make chips in America. AMD is as well. All that stuff. And I think this is just fallout from that.
Yeah, but to me, that's why I really sort of thought this might end up going through, because there definitely was some flag flying. Like, yeah, the FTC felt like that. A lot of people thought that was what killed it. It probably is what killed it. But at the same time, don't we want a U.S.-based company to control basically the CPU that powers the entire world practically? So isn't that Isn't that in the interest of? Isn't that interest of the U.S.? So I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to fight it if they figured out something with the U.S. But I think China and Britain Europe were also fighting it, and it's just way too much. Even if it is have good ideas and good things could have happened out of it, it's just the wrong time.
I still think ARM comes out of this weaker. Everybody, huh?
How?
Well, because one, it is neutral now, and sometimes you're still going up against other companies that have, you have Intel, you have AMD, you've got RISC, you've got these other technologies here. Sometimes you do need more funding to continue, and sometimes actually being under the umbrella of somebody like Apple or Google or somebody with immense amounts of money can actually make it stronger. And I think everybody has seen the message that nobody's ever going to own ARM. It's always going to exist on its own. So it's never going to sort of like blow up even anymore. It feels like it's already huge, but is it going to dominate more? I mean, 90% of servers are still x86. Where does ARM go from here? And then it's just, and companies, a lot of times they exist because, they exist to get bought out by somebody bigger, right? Especially with trillions of dollars. So I would think, honestly, if you're Apple, and Apple's always that, like, let's be honest here, folks. Apple is always that company. Is like, yeah, I love you. Sure. Yeah. And they're like, I'm like, what are you doing on your phone? You're looking at Tinder? What's up? Because they're like, that Apple's like, they're looking at, they need to have their own architecture that they fully control now. Because that's like baked into Apple DNA, right? They like, okay, we've been burned here. IBM, Motorola, Intel, like let's just do our own thing now. I mean, really our own thing now, because there's definitely a risk there. I mean, you never know, because ARM could get bought by Nabisco, and then what the hell they're going to do, right? So I would just think that everybody's looking at options to eventually long term. It's not going to happen immediately, but I just still think ARM is fundamentally damaged now after this blow up. And then SoftBank that did it. Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame Nvidia, because somebody wants to sell me a Steam Deck out of their trunk for $200, I'm going to buy it, But
I still think Microsoft's would have probably been a good option for it, even though that'd get it weird mixing software and hardware. But Microsoft's been a good neutral party for the PC in general. Like,
yeah.
Ish, yeah.
I know they are, but there's way too much.
They could have done all right.
I think they would have, but I mean, there's no way that Apple would have ever, and Google would have been like cool with Microsoft owning. I mean, that's the problem now. It's sort of like it can never grow bigger. It feels like that. I mean, that's what I mean.
Everyone's making custom chips these days, and a lot of them is powered by ARM. And Apple licenses like the ARM like basics of it, but they have their own architecture and everything. So, and a lot of other companies are doing that too. So yeah, remains to be seen. But I think ARM is still going to be at the heart of that. RISC-V, might start doing that for some technologies. Like Intel just announced a $1 billion fund for different chip startups, and a lot of that's going to RISC-V and Sci5 and stuff like that. But I think, ARM's going to be here to stay. I don't know if it can get bigger, but it's already huge. So,
I mean, you can be Switzerland and still have your own power in your own right. It just may not be the same as everyone else flashing their nukes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because people are like, well, hey, you know what? We're about to go to war here. Let's check what Switzerland has to say about this. We want your advice. Should we? We don't care what you do, Switzerland. Give me some Ricola. Get out of here. We're going to do this thing. I just kind of, I don't think, and that's, it feels like if ARM is going to go to war with everybody else, continue to get that, it feels like it's fundamentally a lot harder now. So I don't know. I think that. And here's the other question, though. Is NVIDIA fundamentally weaker coming out of this? They are now the seventh largest company in the world. By the way, they bumped off Meta, I think, because Meta lost a ton of money recently. But does this whole deal hurt NVIDIA?
I don't think so.
Well, other than paying for that restocking fee. But
no, I think it could have done very well for NVIDIA if it went through. The restocking fee hurts. But I think there's a reason why it's as highly valued as it is now. I wouldn't be surprised if their stock does go down in the future, but that'll be when the GPU bubble bursts, when demand happens, catches up, and Ethereum crashes and stuff like that. I don't think it'll be related to this.
So but NVIDIA does need a general purpose processor, though, right? I mean, it feels like.
Yeah, Intel is going to have its GPU soon. It's got its CPUs. AMD's obviously offers both and has for a while. NVIDIA's the one missing from there, so it does. I can see why they took this stab, but.
Well, what do they do though? If you're NVIDIA, I mean, obviously though they are 90% of graphics on the PC, so they're in no danger of losing any control. But I do wonder, do they need to invest in something else? No.
They're doing fine. The graphics they've done a great job convincing the world that graphics power is what's needed for a lot of what's coming down the pipeline. And I think that's what their strength is. I think this would have been a good fit for them, but I think they'll be just fine nonetheless. I don't think this hurts them tangibly, their basic business.
Yeah. It's kind of, it is a lot. I mean, and again, I do think NVIDIA probably was a home that would have been more acceptable. Frankly, Microsoft, like Apple probably, well, they're certainly no friends with NVIDIA, but you would think that Apple is like, if ARM had been in control of somebody, they would rather have seen it in NVIDIA's control than Microsoft or Intel, right? So,
but now it'll be the public. Yeah. So it's not happening. So all the cool ideas, all the cool dreams, they might still happen. The things that NVIDIA was hoping to do with ARM, I mean, they can still license it. They can still do whatever they were going to do. But they obviously won't be invested into advancing ARM the way that they presumably would have if they bought the company.
Yeah.
But
real quick, I totally spaced it. I'm so sorry. We had three friends of the show give us super chats. I need to read those before we move on. Rise Beyond Fate gave us $4.99. Thank you so much. And said can't afford a GPU this year, so the APU in the Steam Deck will be the GPU of the year. So who knows? Maybe we'll see.
maybe.
Maybe. And then PJs gave us $5. Thank you so much. Said, thank you, Gordon, for being an influence on my years getting into PC hardware, 90s to early 2000s. Glad to see your knowledge going to new generations. So,
oh, yeah. Old school.
there you go. And Henry K gave us $4.99. Thank you so much. Said, don't forget emulation. You can emulate Switch games on the Steam Deck. So it's true. Emulation is going to be awesome on Steam Deck. So thank you. You know what's not going to be awesome on the Steam Deck is Stadia. Womp, womp, womp.
Where is Stadia awesome?
Ooh. Getting right to the point, Brad.
Yeah. Good question. Wow. Well,
It might be coming to your Peloton bikes I saw this week, though. So
Are you serious? Or are you
Yeah.
making fun of like also?
Well,
no, that was the
that's the
business.
pivot.
That business. Yeah, the Business Insider article that announced all this stuff that we're about to talk about. Part of it was, hey, it might be coming to Peloton bikes, and then Peloton laid off 20% of its staff and stuff like that too.
Oops.
So
Peloton, but yes.
Wah, wah.
Oh my God.
whatever.
So wait, you're
I'm
saying
Peloton.
Stadia is so radioactive it ended up like the just the mere mention of it with the Peloton caused like them to rift 20% of their workforce?
I mean, I think that would be the preferable story as opposed to what actually happened with Peloton.
So the story is Business Insider did a big insider report talking to, I think they said 20 different people. I think if that was this one. Basically, Google Stadia, the company, is, according to this Business Insider report, focusing more on pushing Stadia's underlying technology, rebranding it Google Steam, and having it like a white box solution for other companies. So like AT&T can be like, hey, we want to do game streaming. So they license Google Stream. Google Stadia, this report says, like the consumer effort, Stadia itself is only about 20% of the efforts in Google behind this right now, according to this report. So everything seems to be focused around pushing it as a white box solution, the underlying technology, rather than a consumer service.
I mean, we always talked about this, but isn't this classic Google, right? To just be like, you know what? You can still buy it if you want it. It's there. We have like 5 people working on it. You can still buy it, but you know, we're going to repurpose it for something else.
We talked about this when Stadia launched.
Oh, yeah.
I know for sure I was like, how long like, what's the over under on how long it's going to be alive? And everyone's like, oh, I feel like at least 5 years. Has it been 5 years?
I don't know. I don't.
It has.
2 or 3 years.
I
Yeah,
don't feel like people were saying
Gordon,
that though.
Gordon
Elena.
didn't say 5 years.
I think people were saying it was like, oh yeah, it's already like, flipping over on the runway and fuel going everywhere. I think is what we were saying at the time, right? Because it was, the launch made 0 sense, even though it had so much promise.
Yeah, that's the rough part. Like, all the cool features and stuff they showed leading up to it are awesome. Like the ability to just leap right into where your favorite streamer was playing a game on YouTube, be like, oh, I want to play that right there, right now, and be able to click a button and you're right in that spot with the exact same save file. That's awesome. Being able to see what your friends are doing in the corner while you're playing a multiplayer game, that's awesome. But it just never happened.
And the thing that I really was sort of hoping it would work is the server-based gaming, because a lot of the problems with multiplayer games is because of the latency getting to the server, right? There's just so much latency. Everybody's got different latency, and the packets are coming different times. Basically, a lot of it, like you could do a 500-player server and everybody could be on there, and the experience would be far better than trying to doing it in a conventional manner. At least that was pushed, but I don't think we ever saw that though, right? And we never saw. I mean, just so many broken promises. I just don't.
They Googled it.
Yep.
How did
I mean, yeah, we just got a $5 super chat from friend of the show, Cordarius Technology. It said the reason it failed is because of Google. Yeah, it's they Googled it. I think for me the biggest thing, because I mean we all kind of knew that it had a chance of going this way, right? I mean they had a chance, but it just didn't work out. I think the hardest part is that how long are you going to keep that up there? Like, imagine if somebody didn't realize what Stadia was and got sucked into just starting to buy games on there. Like, why even continue the service? I actually wish they would just come out and be like, dead, it's killed, you can't do it anymore, and piss off the people who've already bought it. Well, but they're not going to service it. They're not going to it's not going to be updated. Like, who knows if new games, how often they're going to come out.
I will say that one. I don't think it's any more or less dead than it already was. Like, it was already not a thing I would have recommended.
Yeah, well, they should have killed it. Yeah,
yeah. But for what it's worth, like just this week, I got from their PR. The new Rainbow Six game is out on Stadia. They have 200 plus games available on Stadia. 100 plus games are expected to arrive on Stadia in 2022. So it is still alive. It's not dead. There are a bunch of headlines saying this is dead. It's not dead. They're still putting the basic effort in that they were before.
Well, but that's the thing. Would you ever recommend somebody buy into something that is just giving the basic effort?
No.
Well, Brad, but let me ask you, this is if a tree falls on a Schrodinger's cat in the forest and no one is there to play the game on Stadia, is it actually still alive? If no one is playing any games on there.
Yeah, I really feel like, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Like, why would they keep it going if they're just going to let it on life support? Like,
have you guys ever seen the Destiny 2 player-based things that came out? I forget who mentioned, because you can look at the Destiny 2 and it's daily users. It's thousands and thousands of people, millions of people on consoles, on PC, on Steam, and then it's 8,000 people on Stadia or something like that.
Yeah, that's why you would argue that you were saying they never were alive in the first place. So
well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it's just, for me, it's I feel like it'd be better to just kill it. Than just let it live in perpetuity like this, in this dead state.
We all know, having used Google products before, is let's make you suffer some more and just make you think it's gonna continue, and then what's gonna happen is they're gonna launch. Oh, we have a competing service based on something a different team did that's totally different. Like, what? And we're gonna call it the same thing, it just spelled a little differently to confuse you, and then we're gonna kill that one, and then we'll finally kill it all, right?
And then we'll go back to the original.
And then we'll go back to the original. Because I really believe everybody. I mean, didn't everybody just kind of call this when it came out, though? It was kind of it was DOA.
Botched launch. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not actually any more dead than it was. So there's a bunch of headlines around that. Don't, take that with a grain of salt. It's clearly not in a strong place.
So,
But it is cool underlying tech, and so there could be a phoenix out of this. Like, because like we said, the underlying tech is really cool. If they're able to develop the tech and offer it to other things, something cool could come out of it. I just don't think Stadia is going to wind up being the actual answer.
but do you think those features that they talked about ever existed, or were they just simply, wow, that is a really great PowerPoint item to show off as we market this? Did it ever exist? Did it ever really come out? I mean,
Some of them did in limited capacity. I think Ghost Recon Breakpoint had the one where you could see
Yeah.
partner playing,
Yeah.
but they didn't have the big games behind them. They didn't,
Well-
nobody picked it up. And a lot of that stuff that they originally promised, like, this is going to be coming. And I think they fully intended on it to come. But then when it launched, everyone's like, I'm not going to trust Google with my money. I'm not invested in that. They pulled back.
Actually, I do remember one bright spot. Maybe the brightest spot they had was when Cyberpunk came out. The Stadia version actually did better than some other console versions that
In performance?
Yeah, in performance. So
Wouldn't have taken much though.
yeah. So
Yeah, let's see. Right after Stadia launched, August 13, 2020. So that was pretty soon after Stadia launched. There were a total of 4,000 users playing Destiny 2 on Stadia and about 1,000 of them playing multiplayer. So,
ooh, that's rough. And the bummer thing is that it gets to Adam's point is the whole world where we sort of have soft licenses to stuff it kind of sucks because you've bought this game on Stadia that damn well you're not going to be able to use in 5 years.
yeah.
So I look at like the multiple failed Microsoft, music initiatives. All that music is vaporized. You're never going to access that again either. So
Yeah.
it does
Right.
make you like really cherish your CD sometimes,
I would love to see them acknowledge the fact that they're changing direction on this and honestly refunding people's money for games that they purchase. Microsoft has done this several times where they shut down a service or they prepare to sunset something and they're like, hey, you know what? We changed direction, but you're not going to have to eat the cost of that. So here you go. I mean, they've got the money for it. So that I think would at least lessen the sting of people having tried to invest in this, initiative of theirs.
Do you foresee
I-
any? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the whole thing, it's this console in the cloud. That's what we've always called it. And it's one that clearly did not have great necessarily odds for success. So people make fun of me for but mentioning GeForce Now so often. But this is part of the reason that we do, because it's not just because we're PC world and we're PC first, but because that's the games that you already own. You're going to still have them if this whole thing crashes and burns, which it looks like Stadia is starting to do, and then you're just going to be out whatever games you bought.
Yeah, it is funny because I do hear more groundswell around the Xbox Game Pass Cloud or X Cloud. We're just going to call it X Cloud. I can't remember what the official title is, but especially in the option where you're like, hey, listen, I'm going to play the game on my console and then I pick it up on my phone to and the save transfers over. So it's just like, oh, if I can't get to my console or something, I'd play a little bit. So it's almost like those two services have kind of been able to cement themselves in different ways too, between GeForce Now and X Cloud, whatever.
Are those? I don't really follow the streaming services that closely. Are those really sort of like last two that are actually can be considered success?
Yeah. Amazon has Luna, which is not a bad service. It's kind of like Google, where I feel like they have it. They're just not really doing much with it.
It's like Amazon Video, right?
Yeah. Well, actually,
I can watch
you're
football
right.
on Amazon Video.
Well, and Amazon Video, you do have their own programming too. There's nothing on.
I mean, to be fair, I started watching The Expanse after a friend said I should watch it, but I mean, most of the time though, Amazon Video is it's like the $2.99 DVD section at the Arco gas station, right? It's just like, man, this is a junky DVD, but I'm buying it because I'm high, right? This is some bad movies. Whoa, this is bad. I like bad zombie movies, but this is way below that threshold. And there's 900 of them on Amazon Video, right? Amazon Prime Video. They're
Yep.
all bad. They're all $2.99 DVD, straight to DVD. Not even straight to DVD, straight to DVD gas station release. That's how bad almost everything on Amazon Prime is. I just sort of imagine Luna to be the same thing, but it's not that bad.
I mean, Ubisoft is there, of course, but they're everywhere. So like you can't say much, but yeah. I mean, I think it's more it's the same kind of Stadia thing where you don't own the games. If it were to go belly up, like you don't own the games, it's just like a rental service.
And to be clear, it's the same deal with Xbox Cloud Gaming, they call it these days. Like, you don't own those games, but you're paying $10 a month or $15 a month to be able to stream them and use as many as you want and stuff like that.
Wait.
That's a big difference from.
But also,
are we talking about their xCloud service, or are we talking about Game Pass?
I mean, it's
tied in.
Yeah, what's the real name for it?
Xbox Cloud Gaming.
Yeah,
it's
there you go.
part of Xbox Live or Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah.
So that is like Netflix. You're renting it. You're also renting that, but you're paying the $10 to $15 a month to play what you want out of there, which is different from having Google Stadia. Yes, there's Stadia Pro where you can play some games, but a lot of these games you pay full price for, and once this shuts down,
you can't just buy a game on xCloud and just own that game on that service, So it's like, hey, as long as you're paying for the service, you get all these games, So I think that's easier to digest if you're like, oh, you know what, I don't want to pay for Game Pass anymore, then you don't get access to it. So
it's like Spotify.
Yeah. Which, better to stomach than the Google stuff, but
Whereas Stadia is a console that just will suddenly stop working someday, and all your discs are done.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just keep it on forever. And there are other small services, I can't remember, that are kind of like that too, cloud gaming stuff. But yeah, it's real small beans. Really, it's GeForce Now and
wow, and it really feels like console and. The final. So that will be the final match. Then it'll be GeForce Now versus xCloud eventually. Is that what it's called? Official name? xCloud.
Xbox Cloud Gaming.
Oh Lord.
xCloud was way cooler, but I'm guessing it's a trademark issue.
That's probably something else in Microsoft that's called the Xbox Cloud Gaming. Boy, that's some branding.
Anyway. Okay. Sorry, Google. You did it again. Let's get to some Q&A, shall we? Yeah.
Sure.
If you have any questions right now, put them in the chat at PC World, and I'll get them on my little sheet here. But if you're listening or watching this later, there's a link to our Discord in the description. Get in there. There's an awesome community in there, but then also a place where you can put your questions that I can get to later. Also, friend of the show, Tech Potato, just came in evening. A little while ago, Toby Treat asked, should they continue to use their i7 9700 non-K or upgrade to an i5 12400 or wait for Zen 4? Okay, they have a 9700 non-K. Should they upgrade to an i5 12400 or wait for Zen 4?
Well, I'm sure AMD and Intel, who would like your money, would like you to upgrade. That shouldn't be. I mean, clearly they need your money. They want your money, so that would be one reason to upgrade. But generally, you should upgrade only because you need it, not just because you want it. Although that is a valuable upgrade option.
They say they have a 3070. So,
if you're just gaming, I would stick with the 9700.
Yeah, that would be my choice. I wouldn't do it unless you sort of like really are. The core count is really kind of killing you.
Or what about the platform stuff? Yeah, PCI 4.
It's not that bad. Gen 4. I don't think it's worth it. I would definitely see what Zen 4 and Raptor Lake bring, because 9700, it's a really good part still, even though it's a non-K. But who cares? For gaming, 3070. Yeah, I think you'd probably get a little more out of it, but not enough to really make it worth it, in my opinion. But
especially to buy a new motherboard, you got to buy all that new stuff with it. It's not worth it.
DDR5 coming down, but it's just generally not worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Ian Cuttress asks, did you see that ARIS at Hardware Busters is no longer accepting GBT review samples because they tried to tie him to review approval after he'd received sending units for review?
That's lame.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is, misunderstanding new people to marketing in the way the new people that are in the marketing departments who are now working, I hate to call us Western journalists, but sort of journalists that are sort of in different places where you don't get to do that stuff. Although I don't know if it's necessarily worth cutting them off. I think it'd be better just like, hey, that's not how it's done here. You can send it or not send it. If you don't send it, I don't really care. But there is value to keeping your relationship open simply than to slamming the door on their face because they tried it. Because usually it's just because it was my first day stuff. So.
Yeah,
I saw Bill Zoid tweet about it earlier. Bill Zoid is awesome. If you guys don't follow him on YouTube, if you're an enthusiast, I haven't had a chance to watch Eris's video yet, so I don't know the details, unfortunately.
Yeah, and a lot of times you sort of see the arm twisting that they try to do. They just ask. I mean, generally, like as we know Ian, we're like, whatever, I don't care. You just ignore them. What are they going to do? So, a lot of times, it's not really a big deal, but. It is not a good practice, but it should also make you think about how it's done elsewhere in the world where, you sort of are tied to certain things. I mean, there are things you have to accept. I mean, look at the Steam Deck reviews. There were certain limitations that were placed on them to get these units, which is fine because they keep you out of the areas of the mall that are not open yet, and you can look at the part that's open, but they're not saying, You can't say the Cinnabon over here is really dirty. Don't go there. You can go say that all you want, but just don't go to the part we don't want you to go. So there are things you accept, but that is not cool.
Okay, we get another one from Rob S. It says thoughts on Pop OS versus Steam OS. Do they help each other, hurt each other? Will either become mainstream?
I don't think either will become mainstream. I think SteamOS will be much more popular because it'll be on the Steam Deck. And like I said, I think it's going to sell tons. I don't think Pop! OS is really good for a Linux distro, actually. Like, if you're going to be dabbling Linux, I would recommend trying out Pop! OS. But I don't think Linux desktop installations are ever going to be big. I'm glad they exist. I love dabbling in Linux. I go through phases. But I don't think it's ever going to replace Windows.
Yeah, no, that's just not going to happen.
Okay.
Pop! OS is good, though. If you are interested in trying Linux, go give that live CD or whatever they call it these days a shot.
That's the way to go.
It's actually a lot better than it used to be. Like Linux, you can do so much stuff on it that used to be an issue. It's a lot smoother these days. If you want to give it a shot, go give Pop! OS a shot.
That's a friendlier experience than say Linux Mint because I just downloaded it recently. So
yeah,
okay.
Linux Mint, it is friendlier than Linux Mint. Linux Mint is still a lot better than it used to be. Playing with Linux used to be a headache. It's not as much of a headache anymore most of the time, depending what you're doing.
You want to hear
Pop! OS is very user friendly. Yes,
I have a really good Linux story. This is like from the 1990s. So the webmaster for the place I worked at in the 1990s. Dude, like how Neo from Matrix, he was like that dude. Like he looked like him. I mean, like that's Neo, right?
Trench coat.
The guy's name is David Vincent. He was our webmaster, but all the black, all that other, he had the whole Linux. He had the whole Linux, Matrix look, and he owned the Matrix.com. He actually owned the URL. And that's before the Matrix came out.
Oh, dang.
I'm like, Gordon, you got to, Gordon, you Windows loser. You need to try out Linux. It's like, okay, I'll try it out, David. I'm trying this Red Hat. Okay, I've installed it. How do I get to the CD? Well, you just mount the optical drive. It's like I have to mount. You just shell out. I have to shell out and mount the optical drive to access the. That was like some early Red Hat version, but that was like, okay, I'm going to go back to Windows 98 now.
It's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
Says a lot that you went back to Windows 98 voluntarily.
Well, I mean, it's like because I wanted to access my optical drive without having to shell out and mount it. It's just like,
I know. Just saying Windows 98. That's quite a choice.
Yeah.
Debbie and Core S, how is VR going to evolve? What do you guys think about it? Where do you think it's going?
I think I don't know if it'll ever be huge for consumers, to be honest, in the near term future. I think it went through like it got way overhyped to begin with. Like, yes, if you do play it and use it, it's awesome, it's mind blowing. But like I said, I have a Vive and I don't touch it super often because it is very isolating and different. I would not be surprised if VR and AR winds up having much bigger application in businesses like what Microsoft is doing with HoloLens as time goes on.
Yeah, but even that kind of blew up recently, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's an official term for it. It's called the Valley of Despair after the hype phase. You're crawling out of that Valley of Despair once people realize like, oh, this is hard work. I don't know. Sometimes I mean, VR is amazing, awesome, but
Yeah.
it does sometimes feel like, yeah, this is just, I don't know. Maybe there's like you need like a generational ship, you know, like, oh, I'm not going to make it, but maybe my kids will make it out into VR, right?
I think it's also experiences. Like I feel like, you know, when you talk about games you or whatever software, you think about it like a killer app, you know, something that somebody wants so bad to get into and stay there, right? Like whatever, you know, the Half-Life Alyx was partially that, but yeah, not enough, I don't think. So I don't know. I think it's like they're still trying to figure out the best ways to use it and get into it. You know, a traditional game doesn't just map one-to-one, so you have to have a separate experience. But how do you build that out? What does that look like? I feel like that hasn't been cracked yet. You know.
Yeah.
So.
No, there really hasn't been the killer app for it, right?
There's no killer app. It's still like, yes, the Meta Quest 2 is pretty popular. But it still is, you know, it's affordable, but it's isolating. It's inherently like technology limited. If you still want really, really great VR, you got to have a decent gaming rig. And that's not something that everybody has. Like I love VR. Like, but for me, a lot of the games are really fun, but my favorite experiences were just that experiences like Google Earth or Tilt Brush or the Blue, stuff like that, I think is way more interesting than the games a lot of the time.
You know, we actually did one of those, you know, multiplayer VR centers, you know, mostly off the shelf hardware. It was like an MSI VR backpack. And I played, it was a Star Trek experience. I did it with both of my kids on my Christmas but on my birthday. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, it was tetherless. So you're not tethered to anything. And it was really kind of fun, you know, but it was super expensive. And it just, a curiosity, you know, for a lot of people still. A really great experience, though.
Yeah, there was
everyone who uses it loves it, but I just don't think it's going to blow up anytime soon.
Is it cost? Is it going to have cost, right? Cost.
And I think experience too. Or, you know, like getting into an experience that you really want to get into, you know.
You know, I know we're still trying to get the Disney sponsorship, but I want to point out, you always kind of think they're going to play the adult industry card, right? Because that saves everybody. The adult entertainment. I'm just surprised that hasn't sort of like wow, yeah, I got to go have one because of this. But you know, you kind of think that would sort of make you a winner, but
they still definitely have VR categories on adult websites.
Yes.
Like that was one of the early things. That's where I met Adam actually. At an adult thing at CES.
Okay. Hold on.
Need that last part right there. Contact.
Yeah, we didn't just meet in a VR chat room on a porn site. It's not.
No. We went to a briefing together at CES. So that was very much the early. I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, it's there.
I have an embarrassing
story. To me, it's just like I was saying. It's the isolation factor. And like the uncomfortableness, like even the most comfortable VR headsets, like you feel like you're wearing a headset after half an hour, 45 minutes. Like the newer ones aren't that bad, but it's still just different from sitting there at your computer, unencumbered, listening to Spotify.
Yeah, it's an experience.
Okay, I'm not gonna tell you the embarrassing story. It wasn't embarrassing for me either, but that was
okay. Mike Quinton gave us a $40 super chat. Thank you so much, friend of the show. They retracted the question though, so I'm not quite sure if they want me to ask it or not. Well, let me know in the chat.
Credit for question asked, I guess.
Yes, thank you. And Evo Cotty Productions, another friend of the show, gave us $10. Said can't wait for the Steam Deck. Me and you. Good afternoon, nerds. Pizza on me. Thank you so much. Go get some pizza. I'll totally do it. And then Another question from Dave Richards. Do I really need 3 separate power cables coming off of the power supply to a 3080 Ti? Their power supply only came with 2, and so they used the one that has the extra little, offshoot thing, piggyback. Elena wrote an article about this.
Oh, I saw Brad about to speak, and then I heard you cue me, and my brain's like, wait, what's happening?
Go ahead.
So it's not strictly necessary, but for like things that can get spiky, it's not a bad idea if you can do it. That's a really short way of putting it. So if you have a graphics card where it can be prone to having like power spikes, it's not a bad idea to have separate cables because it helps not insulate, sorry, that's the wrong word in this concept. It helps protect against the potential of, overloading that particular set of wires for what they're able to handle in that given moment.
I would say I agree with all that. But practically, if you use one of those daisy chain power cables to fill 2 of them and then just use the third one with the other one, you'll be good to go. If it's heavily overclocked or something, you might run into the issues that Elena's talking about, assuming that you have a powerful enough power supply to be running it reasonably to begin with. But yeah, you should don't worry about daisy chain. You're not losing anything.
Yeah, as long as it's built right? I mean, as long as it's a good power supply and they're following specs for all the cables, you should be fine.
The ones like the 3080 Ti's that have the big 3 power supply things in there, that's more for, you'll find those more in the enthusiast class ones that are made for like heavily overclocking it and stuff like that. So that's when you really have to worry about it if you start getting in there and cranking everything up. If you're just running at stock or a mild overclock, don't sweat it.
It's not a problem. But if you're going to show off your build on the internet, just be prepared for the comments.
Yeah. All right, Mike Quinton gave us, I think, another $40. Thank you.
Oh, dear.
And
Thank you.
rephrased their question. Other than just reading the specs, has anyone benchmarked high-demand tasks like CAD or rendering, comparing a 7K MPS to a 3K MPS M.2 SSD to see if the speed matters regardless of TLC or QLC?
So you're saying under a rendering CAD, and we're talking about being
high demand tasks,
IO bound, right? Disk bound.
Yeah.
I have not tested that. I would think you're just so compute bound most of the time if you're doing, CAD is honestly not exactly generally an all core, all thread load. A lot of times that's sort of a very lightly threaded for a lot of CAD work, depending on what you're using, of course. But if you're talking about rendering, we're talking about video. We're talking about actually modeling or video.
I just do modeling.
Yeah, said CAD or rendering. Well, I don't know. They said rendering, so.
Yeah, people really kind of throw that around. I would say you're generally so compute bound that it's not going to make a huge difference between basically a Gen 4 drive or a Gen 3 drive. Sort of those. I don't think it would matter that much. Although it is always nice to have that, but I don't think it's going to make a difference in those workloads.
I agree 100%. I would say if you're hoping to find an answer to that question, you're going to want to Google. There are some like super niche sites and YouTube videos and stuff that they get into that. And that's where you'll find your best luck trying to find that answer.
Yeah. And if you're talking about like video, because remember, Adam, how it used to be with video where you were just heavily disk bound, you'd have those like 8 disk drive arrays to try to be able to get the right speeds. But now, I mean, those things are well below what you're getting out of a M.2 drive. So
yeah. No, I'm not too worried about it. A couple more. Also, Ian says CAD preloads files into the DRAM anyway. Dr. Ian Cuttress from Tech Potato also asks, how do I find an Adam to hire to help with the channel? I want your channel to do awesome. There's only one of me, unfortunately. Sorry. Can't have me. Gordon's got me. But I do know some freelancers actually who might be able to help you. To reach out to me on Twitter. We'll chat over there. And then I think there's one more over on Discord. Let's see. Oh, friend of the show, Dennis Siberian says, is it a myth that inverted PC cases provide better cooling, especially for the GPU? I'm particularly interested if it is true for the Silverstone RL08.
Any opinions? I
mean,
don't think it really matters.
I personally haven't found it to matter too much. I honestly feel like the rest of the case is more influential. Like is there a mesh front? Like where are you venting? You know, kind of those spots. I actually have an RL08 on hand, but I haven't really tested it. I haven't really noticed anything too out of the ordinary. I feel like it's just one of those. Yeah, it's hard to say a blanket statement on that.
Yeah, I would think,
like really get into the nitty gritty of it.
I mean, because clearly flipping it over means the air just comes out, but all of most, since 99% of cases are sort of normal configurations, I think they're sort of designed for straight airflow from the front. I don't think it's going to matter that much. The only time I think it did matter was, again, back in the ancient old days when there was like one Asus motherboard that had a heat pipe going from the south bridge, and it was oddly directional, and when you put it in an inverted, Silverstone case, the thing would overheat or something like that. But who knows? That could have just been internet lore too. So
I think you can make any case have good airflow if you just set it up the right way. So if you're just buying it and using it stock, like, I would not be surprised if there's some sort of benefit to that. But yeah, you can do anything with any case.
It depends what you're putting there too. Like if you have a blower style card versus axial card, like that's also going to change your quote unquote equation, so to speak, for what's happening in the case. So there's a lot of different things in play.
Well, yeah. Okay, a couple more. Gamer Chat Radio says, has any of us seen the H1, the NZXT H1 version 2 coverage? Any thoughts?
I haven't seen.
I watched a couple of videos.
Yeah, it's bigger, right? It's slightly bigger. They said the hole's bigger, I think, for the
holes.
card.
The holes. Yeah, they added a fan. Obviously, the riser cable's been updated. So a little bit of tweaks here and there, but sounds like it's generally better.
Yeah, they've taken lessons from the Gen 1 and added it, giving you a Gen 4 riser cable that, hey, by the way, they made sure their subcontractor did not drill 1 million holes through it. So it's still it's for what it is. You have to consider you're getting power supply cooler with a case. It's a really great build for if you're interested in.
And it's
space.
Easy to build in.
Easy to build in, quick to build in.
Cool size.
Really, the reason why you have tall buildings is not to spread out. So if you have limited desk real estate, it's a great machine.
Still pretty niche though, but
yeah.
So, okay, last one from Toby Treat again. Good end question. What is your favorite DOS PC game?
I'd say X-Wing. For me, it was X-Wing. That's why I was like so excited, and of course, then subsequently disappointed in the new X-Wing. But X-Wing is the game, I think.
I spent way too many hours playing Frontier Elite 2 back in the day. I was actually super glad to see Elite Dangerous happen. Like when I was young, I used to like write fan fiction for it and stuff like that. Like I was hardcore into Frontier Elite 2. So I also like, X-Wing's good, Rise of the Triad, all those older things.
Yeah, and of course, I guess Doom, obviously that's just way too easy to say, so Doom was amazing at the time.
I liked Doom was amazing at the time. I loved Rise of the Triad back in the day. Like there was I loved that.
That was actually, that was just overboard, right? So to me, that Rise of the Triad was like, wow, this is just insanely overboard. Now it's like
the
normal,
remake that they did 5 years or so ago is just as ridiculous.
I like Painkiller. Remember, of course, this wasn't a DOS game, but Painkiller was pretty overboard too. I don't know if you ever played that one. That was, oh yeah, Descent, man, that was.
And I'm dead silent because consoles.
Well, actually, I did play a couple games on my parents. I had to look it up to remember I remember playing the original Duke Nukem, the side scroller. It's funny. But then also I looked up on GOG.com Star Trek Judgment Rights. I remember playing it. It was a point and click, and I like got so frustrated. I got stuck on this like cave thing, and I couldn't, like, for the life of me, kept trying to butt my head against it, but just never. Or maybe it was the I can't remember if it was Judgment Rights or the other one, that just Star Trek 25th anniversary. But yeah, one of those Star Trek point and click adventures was the bane of my existence at the time. So
I think I mentioned on here before, but I used to play, in addition to Frontier Elite 2, there's an RPG game called Betrayal at Krondor that I spent way too many hours playing when I was a kid. I got one of the demo discs with PC Gamer or something like that, and I played it. And then, as you know, 10-year-old Brad mowed a bunch of lawns to go buy that and play it nonstop.
Nice. All right, cool. We have other questions. Can't get to them. We'll get to them next week, I promise. But we got to get out of here. So, Gordon,
check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher. And if you're on one of those services, please do leave a review. Every time you do, SoftBank charges some company an immense amount of money for a restocking fee. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Adios, show.
Elaine Yee.
Bye, everyone.
And Adam Patrick Murray is going to hit the off switch.
Thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your week, and we will see you later. Bye.